Sit! Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Rich Dotson. He's Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
And he's Garrett Price.
How's it going?
It's going good. We're doing a little remote show today. You boys must be a little tired after a long weekend in Canton, Ohio for the FFExpo. Maybe partied a little bit too hard, possibly.
I mean, I'm finally good. Recovered. Yeah, Garrett, I know is good, right? Rich and I are
I'm the most boring of the groups, so I was good. Like a second I walked out.
I got ridiculously drunk on Friday. I remember I was sitting there I told him I saw him on Saturday. I was talking like Rich Rebar and JJ Zacharias, and we were having a very interesting conversation about something. I don't even remember what the topic was, and that's like one of the last thing I remember is like then it came like sporadic points. I know at one point like I was supposed to go like play poker at Bosch and Chris Allen at Chris Allen's house, and I ended up in a car at George's. I remember walking through the door. I remember that and seeing a seat at the bar, and it would like open right away. And it was like Scott Fish was sitting there. I was like, I know somebody here. This is great. Let's just sit down. Sat there for about what I thought was a half hour. And I saw Scott was the first person I saw the next day. I was like, dude, I was sitting next to you for like a half hour. I don't remember a single thing we talked about. He's like, a half hour is more like an hour and a half. And I was like, oh, see, there you go. I don't know. I was like, well, I hope I didn't say anything too drunk. He's like, no, you're good, man. And I'm like, okay, I feel bad. I sat there and talked to Scott for like an hour and a half. Don't remember a single word I said to him. So
man, oh man, I wasn't even there on Friday. So due to that crazy weather and all that stuff, but I had a good time Saturday night at the events there at the hall itself, the party there, and our little, Dynasty Nerds dinner before that. So that was a good time. And obviously Sunday's event's always fun. So it's good times.
Yeah. Yep. It was fun. The panel went well. We did the Dynasty Nerds panel as we always do. And Rich stole the show and crushed it like always. And it was great.
Yeah, I'm an attention diva, so I made sure I went up there and crushed. Shout out to all the Dynasty panelists out there. Me and Scott Connor kept having some good back and forth there. Love the way that dude plays Dynasty because he plays it so differently than I do. Like him and I were talking afterwards, like, man, we should just do a show together sometime just because we play so differently. And I love to see that a Dynasty panel, like when you go to this expo, right? There's panels going all the time, big time names. The biggest panel, I think, like every year, and if it's not the biggest, it's definitely in the top.
It's definitely up there, yeah.
It's a Dynasty panel, like it's standing room only, like it's always great. So I thought it went really good this year. I think it goes really good every year. I encourage everybody if they ever get a chance to go out to the FFExpo in Canton. It's a really good time. Like every analyst, like so many analysts are out there that you can kind of like talk to and get to pick their minds with, and mostly just have fun. Like I love meeting all the fans out there and just chatting up about like fantasy and what they're into and how they play. So it's such a fun way or a fun thing to do when you're like into, because listen, if you're playing Dynasty, like you're really into fantasy. So it's like it gives you an opportunity to hang out with like-minded individuals. Like this is our Dungeons and Dragons festival. This is our Pokemon festival, our expo, crossed it in, whatever you're into. You know what I mean? Like this is our cup of tea. This is where we feel cool.
Comic-Con for fantasy people.
Yeah, pretty much. It pretty much is. It's a Comic-Con for fantasy, and I get it, man. Like if you're passionate about something, it's good. It's great to be around like-minded individuals. Like everybody just naturally gets along. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter who you are. Like you just like you feel like you're friends because you're all there for the same reason. Like you just love fantasy football, and you've got an addiction, just like I do. I can't fix it. So we're back with our final AFC West, NFC West breakdowns, our final divisional breakdowns, as everybody saw on television. The preseason games week 1 are in the books. People are already starting to get a little banged up out there on these streets. It's rough. It's rough out there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
There's some players. Yeah, there's some players that I was excited about that are already starting to get banged up. Fortunately, it sounds like Tyrone Tracy's isn't as bad as I thought, but I still didn't like it.
I mean, that was an air cast situation, but it sounds like it was only a low ankle sprain. So that guy should be back relatively soon, right? And then,
a couple weeks.
Jahmyr Gibbs today with a quick little hammy as well. Hunter Henry missed practice for a couple days with an unspecified injury. So there's a lot of that little stuff going on. Obviously, the rookie
unspecified industry.
Yeah,
just disgust of what's around him.
Marshawn Lloyd, another guy that came up a little lame in this past weekend's game with a hamstring issue. And the big news, obviously, JJ McCarthy, right, with the meniscus,
torn meniscus,
meniscus surgery. Really no timetable put on that one yet because we haven't heard whether or not it was a full repair or one of these goofy ones that is just like a partial type of thing. So we'll see if it's more like 4 to 6 weeks or the entire season on him. So that's going to be that could really affect his development here in year one, but it might actually end up being a good thing. Who knows, right? If he sits and learns the game kind of on the sidelines. We'll see.
And they got Sam Darnold in there. Sam Darnold's been running the offense pretty good from what I've read. He's been getting it done. So, having Kevin O'Connell there will help. We saw last year what they did when Kirk Cousins went down. The offense still was able to play at a decent level. But yeah, I mean, boys and girls, this isn't going to stop. It's going to just keep getting worse. You're going to get more disgusted. You're going to be like Hunter Henry out there, just disgusted with your surroundings, looking at your team. So we'll see how it goes. It's a war of nutrition as well.
That's right.
On those streets. Got to eat healthy.
There's one more guy. There's one more guy, right? Malik Neighbors. He didn't eat his bananas, and now he has got an ankle issue, right? It sounds like he's going to be out till the start of the season. So that's another one.
His is kind of minor too. So all these are to pay attention to. Usually, like next week's preseason game, most people don't play that one. You'll see some people playing the third week preseason game. They get a week off. So we'll see how it goes. Cross your fingers, cross your toes. Don't get banged up. Just get banged. And let's all just kind of like get ready here as we just inch our way into the season. We're just going to inch our way into that. It's going to be very exciting. So let's kick it off here, shall we?
Let's do it, man.
Let's do it.
Let's kick it off with the Denver Broncos. At quarterback, Bo Nix, Jarrett Stidham, and Zach Wilson. Hi, Joe Mamas. At running back, Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, Audric Estime, and Samaje Perine. At wide receivers, Cortland Sutton, Josh Reynolds, Tim Patrick, Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, and Little Jordan Humphrey. At tight end, I didn't write it down.
Greg Dulcich. I have it up.
I got it. It's Adam
Dulcich, I know.
Adam Troutman, Greg Dulcich, Lucas Kroll, and a bunch of guys you don't care about after that.
Yeah, don't care about that. So, I mean, Lucas Kroll was like an early person that Sean Payton was talking up like that first 3 days. That's kind of fallen by the wayside. Greg Dulcich having a pretty good camp here. And we saw what Greg Dulcich could do his rookie season. A very athletic tight end. The guy can move. He can dominate the middle of the field. And, when you're looking at offensive weapons on this team, it's easy to get excited about Greg Dulcich because there's not a lot to get excited about when you're looking at the Denver Broncos for the 2024 season. For you guys, what excites? I already know what excites Garrett over there. I heard a thump under the table when I mentioned favorite Williams name, so I heard a little excitement going on there. No need for duct tape yet, but what excites you guys about this offense for the 2024 season and for your dynasty teams, most importantly?
I know what Matt's going to say too. I know his as well. Go ahead, guys, Matt.
No, listen. Obviously, Bo Nix went out this past week and looked like he can operate this offense pretty efficiently. Is it going to be a lot of stuff close to the line of scrimmage? Yes, obviously. That's kind of what he excelled at in college. So I don't expect him to have this, this huge average area. I don't even know what the term is. He's not going to be throwing it down the field. A-dot. Thank you. That word escaped me. I must have drank that brains all the way this weekend. But I do think he's got some good weapons that kind of can excel in that. I do think Dulcich is the type of guy that is athletic enough that he can take something, a crosser over the middle, and turn it into a big gain. We've seen Cortland Sutton, I think, do some stuff where you can just kind of chuck it up to him. So he doesn't have to be super accurate or anything like that downfield to get the ball to Cortland Sutton. And Marvin Mims, that touchdown that he caught was great. He just got open really quickly at the line, right at the goal line, and the ball was there. It was on time. It was on target. So these are the kind of things that, I expect out of this offense kind of in year one with Bo Nix under center. And I do think it's going to be Bo Nix, whether it's the start of the season or not. I don't know, but expect relatively soon Bo Nix will be the guy kind of leading this thing. And from there, I mean, you're going to have to run the ball. And so that excites me for guys like Javonte Williams. I think McLaughlin looked well. He looked good this past week as well. Even Audric Estime, a guy I didn't really love coming out. He's had some good reviews coming out of camp, and he looked good. And even, I guess, a less plotting than I remember him in his college tape. He looked a little bit more spry. So those are the guys that kind of excite me. I liked what I saw out of Blake Watson as well. I saw a cut up of every single one of his plays, and he looked good also. So I think they have a nice stable of running backs. And we'll see out of the wide receivers who emerges after, Sutton and Mims. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you didn't say anything about Samaje Perine, and I think there's good reason for that. I think he's a pretty strong cut candidate out of this running back room, so wouldn't be surprised if he's kind of the guy that gets cut. And then we'll see. It'll likely be Blake Watson, kind of practice squad to start, but you're right. He's another one that's exciting. Kind of going back to the passing game real quickly, I think Marvin Mims is a really, really big key for this offense this year because when you look at this team overall, you're really going to need someone because I know this isn't Bo Nix's strong point, but you're going to need somebody to stretch the field. So whether that's him or maybe eventually Troy Franklin, but they're going to need someone to threaten deep because we know that overall the tight ends are going to play close to the line of scrimmage. The running backs that they're going to throw to close to the line of scrimmage. Cortland Sutton isn't this big play guy, and he's going to be getting the biggest target share. So somebody's going to have to develop there, or this offense is going to be very predictable. The safeties are going to be able to play up, and there's not going to be much of a threat. So that's going to be the biggest thing that I think they're going to really have to develop is one of those two guys is going to have to come up big at some point this year. And as much crap as I give you about Bo Nix, if he can develop and he can be a solid game manager, because I think even his biggest supporters wouldn't necessarily say he's going to be much more than that, but he could eventually turn into a quarterback 13, 14 kind of guy if everything went the right way. So we'll have to wait and see. But I am still excited for Javonte this year. I think we're going to see him look a lot more like what we saw out of him his rookie campaign before all the injuries started.
Yeah, I'm excited for Javonte Williams this year. I think it'll be a little bit more explosive after having an extremely down year. But, ACL, PCL, MCL, if you got an L in your name, he tore it. So, that's going to be good for Javonte Williams there. But going back to Bo Nix, too, like you mentioned, Matt, like a lot of stuff in the line of scrimmage. Russell Wilson, arguably the worst starting quarterback in the NFL. Everything he threw is in the line of scrimmage. Everything. I mean, everything, or even behind the line of scrimmage. Like 95% of that, what that dude does is just straight trash. That's why he got yelled at on national television by Sean Payton. Surprised he didn't pull down his pants and gave him a good spanking because he wouldn't execute Sean Payton's offense. And we see some of these older coaches sometimes fall by the wayside by the young pups out there. And we'll see what that happens to Sean Payton. But they went out and got Bo Nix for a reason because they knew Bo Nix could execute Sean Payton's offense. Like, what does Sean Payton want out of all his offenses historically? He wants you to drop back quickly and get the ball out quick. That's what he wants. Bo Nix did that in college. He dropped back, got the ball out real quick. We saw him look really pretty good in his preseason game. He was actually a little bit more mobile than I thought as well. So he's going to execute that offense. And we saw, we've already seen how these quarterbacks can perform when they execute a really good offensive mind's system pretty perfectly. We saw Brock Purdy. We saw Sean McVay kind of step up and change his offense up somehow. What's the second half of the year? And we saw Matthew Stafford excel. We see what Tua does, like leading the league in passing yards and Mike McDonald's offense. So like we see what a quarterback can do if they can execute an offense well. And Sean Payton's very confident that Bo Nix can do this. And I feel pretty good about it too, because, Bo Nix does what he does. He's very decisive, gets the ball out in about 2.4 seconds. The slowest person in the league last year to get the ball out, Russ Wilson, 3.1 seconds. And there was at least, I think 25% of his throws took 4 seconds. Like that's abysmal. Like you could have a baby in that time. Like that's ridiculous. Like you can't execute offense that way. And, as far as the weapons, like I'm not, in Dynasty, like I'm not excited about Cortland Sutton at all. This guy's never even been like a wide receiver 2 for the most part.
Are you sure you didn't mean make a baby, Rich?
Well, yeah, I mean, I could make multiple babies in that time frame.
Right.
So
wanted to clarify.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yep.
Bringing my sex life into this. It's very inappropriate of you, but I'll let it pass. Yeah, Cortland Sutton, last year, 59 catches, 772 yards. He made weight by having the most touchdowns he's ever scored with 10. We all know Troy Franklin was Bo Nix's guy. He was his deep threat guy in college. We'll see how that translates here in the NFL. But like you mentioned, like I've been trying to get some Marvin Mims shares this offseason. I've been able to do that, Garrett. And he's somebody you got to remember that the Broncos traded up for in 2023, and somebody that Sean Payton likes as well. So, the future here could be definitely Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin. I expect to bring another guy in, but can't also forget about Tim Patrick. Tim Patrick got hurt last year, and Sean Payton, like every report out of Denver, like Sean Payton loves Tim Patrick. So we'll see like how involved he is. I think the best buy in this passing game. Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
And Tim Patrick, he's making against the cap, he's like the 7th highest that they have on the team right now. They have a very odd cap, but he's only counting about $7 million against it. But $7 million for a wide receiver against the cap, that's a pretty good chunk of change for a guy that's likely going to be your 3rd wide receiver. So if he sticks on the roster because there's no dead money there, it is because they really like what he's doing. So just kind of, I think that was kind of like the financial note that I had for guys on this team. It's Tim Patrick making that much money, and it was Samaje Perine. And kind of why I didn't mention him is they could save about $3 million and get out from underneath that contract pretty easily for Samaje Perine.
Yeah, so going back to the first person we talked about is Greg Dulcich. Like, I think if you're looking for a sneaky buy in this offense offensively for fantasy football production, I think Greg Dulcich is a real nice buy. Tight end premium, great. Regular tight end, you got no depth. You probably get in a non-tight end premium, you could probably get Greg Dulcich for a 3rd. Young, I think he's like 24 years old, very explosive. You said Payton wants to get this ball out quick. It's going to really benefit the tight ends, definitely over the middle of the field. So I think if you're looking for somebody for some upside to give you that like middle to low end tight end 1 numbers, which is great in tight end premium, I think Drake Dulcich is buy. Besides that, I'm excited for Marvin Mims. Troy Franklin's a deep stash. Javonte should take a step forward this year, but in Superflex Premium, obviously all the juice here is on Bo Nix, and kind of what the Broncos are going to do going forward, building around him.
Last thing here, real quick, I want to throw in. I like to always make sure I kind of give the line perspective. Denver Broncos pretty much middle of the pack, 15th overall as far as offensive line goes. They have one of the best guards in the league in Quinn Merritt. So it's going to be interesting. Really the only question mark is their center, Lloyd Cushenberry. He did end up leaving in free agency this year. So that's the only real big question mark. But overall, it's a pretty solid group.
And one more note there on the offensive line. I was listening to Mark Schler talk on like Sirius NFL radio, and he was kind of he's dialed into that team. He played for them and everything. And he was talking about the offensive line. He's like, listen, like the offensive line last year gave up a lot of sacks, but a lot of them were actually credited to Russell Wilson and him holding onto the ball too long. He's like, so even through no additions, I think this offensive line will perform better this year, just due to the fact that it's not Russell Wilson and he's not kind of doing his own thing and kind of holding the ball, trying to extend plays to do things that are kind of outside the scheme of what Sean Payton wants to do. So I think naturally that will kind of get a little bit better this year as far as the pass pro, just with somebody that's getting the ball out on time.
Yeah, I really heard that's what the Ayuk trade's being hung up on. Like they're like, hey, we want to trade you Ayuk, and Tomlin's like, you got to take Russ Wilson off our hands, and they're like, absolutely not. We don't want that smelly hippie on our team. All he does is hold on to the ball like it's a bag of dope. We ain't taking him. Hey, Dynasty Nerds, want to revolutionize your fantasy experience? Look no further than Sleeper, the cutting-edge platform now featuring our Dynasty GM tool. Get unparalleled Dynasty insights right where you play. But that's not all. Sleeper's new picks product is a game changer. It's incredibly simple. Choose 2 to 8 players and predict if they'll perform above or below their projected stats. No complex lineups, no salary caps. Make picks before or during live games for NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, and more. Here's the kicker. You win up to 100 times your cash with just a few correct picks. And it gets better. Use our promo code NERDS and Sleeper will match your first deposit 100% up to $100. That's free cash to play with, folks. Ready to dominate? Use the link on our podcast description or enter the promo code NERDS when you sign up. Double your deposit, access to Dynasty GM, and start winning big with Sleeper picks. How about Garrett moves us on to the reigning Super Bowl champions,
Kansas City Chiefs. All right.
Are you guessing there?
Well, I was supposed to do it. That's why he's.
It was supposed to be Matt.
Oh yeah, you're supposed to lead in Matt on the Super Bowl champions, and then Matt's gonna break down the roster. Give it to us, Matt O'Hara.
All right, so we'll start at the top with the quarterback position. Patrick Mahomes. Sorry, everything just went blank on my screen. Patrick Mahomes, Carson Wentz. Ian Book is on that team. Also, at the running back position, they got Isaiah Pacheco, Denetric Prince, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Keontae Ingram, Luis Zamet. How do you say that guy's name? Does anyone know? The Australian?
Reese Zamet. Yeah, mate. Yeah.
And Amani Bailey. I'm gonna put in Amani Bailey because I like him. So him as well. And then at the wide receiver position, we've got Xavier Worthy. We have the broken already Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, Sky Moore, Justin Watson, Mecole Hardman, Justin Ross, Kadarius Toney. They are loaded. They have got a lot of names. Not a lot of game, but a lot of names. At the tight end position, obviously, Travis Kelce. They got Noah Gray, the draft pick Jared Wiley. They even have Irv Smith Jr. on this team. Did you guys know that? Fun fact.
Boo to all those wasted rookie draft picks. Irv Smith Jr.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Is it worth holding on to Irv Smith Jr. for this little fun experiment that is the Kansas City Chiefs this year?
Nah.
Is it worth French kissing somebody who just threw up in their mouth?
Oh, gross, man. No.
Well, who was it?
Exactly. Same feeling. Yeah.
Who was it?
Oh, Garrett. All right. Putting in
Who's
a
the person
caveat.
that threw up? Just curious.
Oh, that matters?
I mean, it could.
Listen, I think that Veronica Vaughn is one nice piece of it. But if she's throwing up, her and I are not French kissing. I am sorry.
All right.
You, on the other hand, you don't mind. Like, hey, let me get that piece of corn out between your teeth, baby.
God, this is just going from bad to worse.
Yeah, it's like Irv Smith's career.
All right,
sorry,
so
man.
there's
you're still young.
Just checking. I'll cut him.
Yeah, the only tight end.
I still have him.
The only tight end other than Travis Kelce at this point that's even like remotely interesting is Jared Wiley, the rookie. Outside of that, I know Noah Gray's been a name there for a very long time, but he's never done anything to show that he's anything special. He's been fine when given the opportunity, but I think if I were interested in somebody, it would be Jared Wiley.
Yeah, he's also in the last year.
He's a seam stretcher.
He's also in the last year of his deal. I would expect him to move on now. They've kind of already gotten his replacement. I think they kind of drafted him thinking, who knows? Let's see if Travis Kelce retires and he can maybe develop in the meantime, but Travis Kelce just keeps ticking on. And I think Wiley's kind of the next man up as far as heir apparents there in Kansas City. So
yeah, might as well be Noah go away.
Yep.
Yeah, and Mike Gesicki's a free agent next year, so we all know what's going to happen there.
We all know.
You've been trying for years.
Can't stop, won't stop.
I know.
I've been the Chargers.
I've been holding him like strictly on the fact that I think if I ever dropped him, Rich would scoop him up in every single league that I have, and then it would be just my luck that he ends up on Kansas City. So it is out of fear. It is out of fear that I'm keeping Mike Gesicki on my roster.
Put that hand grenade out there on the waiver wire and let Rich take it.
Hey, he's looked good. I will take him immediately. He's looked good in camp so far.
He looks good every year in camp.
I know, that's right. This is great. Everybody's like, oh, T. Higgins looks great. It's like, yeah, it's easy for T. Higgins to look great when there's nobody else on the field. Jamar Chase is out here vacationing, getting his toes done because he doesn't have a contract. But we're talking about the Chiefs, so it doesn't matter about what the Bengals got going on there. Isaiah Pacheco, you guys mentioned the running back room, kind of gross there. Clyde Edwards-Helaire will still probably end up being a backup, even though we heard Denetric Prince is kind of like look good. But we heard the same report last year that he looked good in the preseason. A lot of people look good in the preseason, and they don't make the roster because they look good because they get a lot more carries. Isaiah Pacheco coming off a really good year. Has a potential to give you just running back one numbers for what he does. Definitely have the usage that he gets in that offense. And, it comes down even like Pat Mahomes having somewhat of a down year, but like Pat Mahomes' weapons are finally replenished here in Kansas City. Even though Travis Kelce's 35, he said he wants to play till the wheels fall off. He was fine definitely in the second half of the year when he was a little bit more healthy. it always has the potential to come in here and average 1,000 yards when it comes to receiving. So you're looking at this, been a first-round pick in Xavier Worthy. Rashee Rice had a really good year last year, breakout. Definitely when you look at the second half of his season, dominates with the ball in his hand, really good yards after the catch, and getting the ball kind of at the line of scrimmage. And, even though like Xavier Worthy is kind of considered like the fastest guy of all time, right? Xavier Worthy at the combine, fastest guy of all time. Like, this guy is going to take the top off. Like, well, I mean, really, if you look deep into the stats of Xavier Worthy, he's somebody that really wins at the line of scrimmage more than taking the top off as well. When you look about his college production, this is somebody that, he took a lot of screens in college. And listen, Mahomes loves to throw the screens. Like, he's one of the league leaders when it comes to throw the screens. I think I had it down here. I got that was like one of those Rich Rebar stats I have here on. Like 15% of the times that Mahomes likes to throw through the screen. 15% of the time is the third most in the league. And we saw like what they could do. Like Rashee Rice kind of had a really good second of the year with the ball in his hands. But Xavier Worthy, he saw a third of his receptions last year in college. A third came off of screens. And he averaged about 7.8 yards per reception on those screens. So like he does fit this offense really, really well. Having Rashee Rice, having Travis Kelce bodes well for Pat Mahomes to bounce back, to put him back into potential top 3 fantasy football quarterbacks. And we'll see if another guy can step up. You mentioned, Matt, there's a lot of names. I don't expect Kadarius Toney to do jack squat. Hollywood Brown is already hurt. And, Justin Ross is out there having a good camp, but same thing. He's like a big play kind of receiver that always looks good when he gets a chance, but just can never put together. Who are you most excited about here from a dynasty fantasy football perspective? Obviously, it's not Travis Kelce because of his age. Pat Mahomes is put by the wayside. He's a goat at quarterback. Like, is it Xavier Worthy? Is it Rashee Rice? Is Isaiah Pacheco? Like, what excites you here in dynasty with paired up with Pat Mahomes?
I mean, for me, it is between Worthy and Rice for who's going to be kind of the big dog to emerge as the number one target here. And, I would think at this point, Rashee Rice has a little bit of a head start, but he's already had some off the field issues and stuff like that. And Xavier Worthy is really special as far as with the ball in his hands, because you can get it to him short, you can get it to him deep down the field. Either way, he can be a weapon. And I think that fits what Kansas City wants to be able to do. They've been kind of missing that piece ever since Tyreek Hill left the building. So if I had to put my money on anyone being the big time threat here, I think it's going to be Xavier Worthy. So while in the short term, I think Rice might kind of outshine him maybe this year, I think the development of Xavier Worthy, as long as he kind of stays on a path where it's all positive, he's not getting dinged up or anything like that due to his size and all that kind of stuff, then I think he's kind of the long-term play.
Yeah, Matt, I would echo that. I think Xavier Worthy's the guy that I'm the most interested in. Not that Rice is a bad player, but anytime that you have suspensions looming and question marks there, and it's always a tough one. Yes, guys can come back from that and be just fine and have super successful careers. We've seen guys like Joe Mixon and Tyreek Hill do that. But then there's other guys where they get into trouble and then they stumble a little bit and then all of a sudden they're just gone. Like, they're just never heard from again in the NFL. So
I mean, Martavis Bryant, like someone like that, you know what I mean? He really came out and shined for a year and then kind of just fell off.
Yeah, Ray Rice, he was in his prime of his career and then just was gone. So I mean, you, not that I hope for that, not that I wish that, but when you see multiple incidents in the same offseason, there clearly seems to be something not clicking there for him, and so hopefully he gets that cleaned up. But it looks like from what we saw in camp and stuff, there's already a decent connection from Mahomes to Worthy, and if they can keep that going, it could be something pretty special. So I would rather put my chips in on Worthy than Rice at this point.
Yeah, it's easy to pick the first-round pick to burner. You got to remember, though, Rashee Rice was a second-round pick. And I think Pat Mahomes, being as excellent as he may be, most excellent, as Bill and Ted would say, I think that Rashee Rice is a pretty good value in Dynasty right now as well. It looks like no suspensions coming this year. And you said, like, he was a second round pick. Like, him and Jaden Reed were both like the two surprising second round picks, both come out and produce. And, for rookies, like, when I look at a rookie coming into the NFL, like, I really want to look at him at the second half of the season. And if you take Rashee Rice, you put him in the second half of the season, even when a guy like Travis Kelce stepped up more so the second half of the season, if you take Rashee Rice after the bye week, right? So from week 11 on, and he missed a game. So Rashee Rice misses one game in this time span from week 11 to 17 due to injury. He was wide receiver number 14 overall in PPR leagues. So we're still talking about a very valuable asset in this offense. And you got to remember, Xavier Worthy is a small framed receiver who's a burner. So if they do get a lot hitting the ball at the line of scrimmage live, he is involved in screens, you will have to be somewhat worried about injuries with a player that plays at that kind of frame. So it's going to be interesting how it all plays out. I think Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice are closer than probably ADP would tell you. Definitely from a fantasy football perspective. I just really want to see Xavier Worthy kind of step up here and show us they can be a high level player. But listen, we're always attacking guys like that you want to build your dynasty rosters around and like these high level offenses. And this is one of them. So, Isaiah Pacheco was what, like a 7th round pick, putting up like low end running back 1 numbers, high end running back 2 numbers. Like, you want these pieces in these offenses. Travis Kelce, 35. Like, we don't know how much longer this guy's got to go on here as an offensive weapon. So it really makes it Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy great values in dynasty. But, for me, when it comes to price on them and best banger for your buck, I think I would probably lean Rashee Rice. I would draft Xavier Worthy first, but I think the best value would be a guy like Rashee Rice, who can kind of give you those mid-range wide receiver 2 numbers. And you probably go out there and get him for like a wide receiver 3 cost in dynasty today. And I think once the season starts, it's going to change. So I think there's still a window to buy Rashee Rice. Hey, Nerd Herd, this is Rich Dotson. I've got some exciting news for you. Underdog Fantasy is back with their annual Best Ball Mania tournament. And this year it's bigger than ever with a whopping $15 million prize pool. Best Ball Mania 5 is the ultimate fantasy football competition where you draft your team and then sit back and relax. No trades, no waivers, just your best lineup every week automatically set by Underdog. For just $25, you can enter for a shot at the grand prize of $1.5 million. Plus, there are tons of other prizes throughout the season, including $500,000 for the top regular season performer. And guess what? We've got a special offer just for our listeners. Use the promo code NERDS when you sign up, and Underdog will give you up to $250 in bonus cash with your first deposit. Don't miss out. Drafts are happening now. The entries close before the first game of the season. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app. Sign up with promo code NERDS and start your journey to fantasy football glory today. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concern with your play. Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. In New York, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY. In Tennessee, call 1-800-889-9789.
Moving on to the Las Vegas Raiders. We have at quarterback Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, Anthony Brown Jr., then at running back, we have Zamir White, Alexander Madison, Amir Abdullah, and Dylan Laube. Wide receivers, Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, Christian Wilkinson, Jalen Guyton, DJ Turner. And then tight end, we have the young stud Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer, and Harrison Bryant. So there's actually some interesting names in this group overall, but it starts off with the quarterback position. And you could argue that this is maybe one of the uglier, if not the ugliest, quarterback situation right now in football. But Gardner Minshew, one way or another, always seems to get the job done. And Aiden O'Connell did show flashes. So right now, is there one that you would prefer over the other? And even if you would prefer that player, is there any prayer of them being the starting quarterback still in 2025?
I think the only one that has a real shot at being the 2025 guy is Aiden O'Connell. I mean, the Gardner Minshew is there through 2025, but I think his contract is such that he could just be the backup. So I think he's there no matter what. But Aiden O'Connell, I think, is the guy that they would want to develop and be their guy next year as well. If Aiden O'Connell flames out and Gardner Minshew is the quarterback all season, they're drafting somebody. You know what I mean? Like they're going to be that's they're going to have to figure out their long-term solution. So Aiden O'Connell's the only correct answer here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a gross. I mean, you're right. That thing is UGLY. You ain't got no alibi. It's ugly. It's the worst quarterback room in the league. And they showed last year. I know they stepped up last year and they won some games for new head coach Antonio Pierce. But I mean, if you look back, they won their games versus doo-doo butter. I mean, they really did. And they beat Pat Mahomes. Outside Pat Mahomes, I mean, who'd they beat? The Giants and Tommy DeVito. The Chargers with Easton Stick. Jets with Zach Wilson. Jarrett Stidham. Like, yeah, congrats on all your success out there. And you're right. I mean, I know they helped try to build the offensive line. They spent a second on a guard. They spent a third round pick on a tackle here. And you know, does Aiden O'Connell have a chance? Like, it's so like I'm not sit here and pretend like I can't say like Aiden O'Connell and he can't, you know, take off the patrol outfit and step away from being Farva for a minute and come in here and be a starting NFL quarterback. Like, I'm not saying that. You know, come on, Meow. Come on. Like, he can get out there and he can get it done. So, you know, possibly, and you're right, Matt. Gardner Minshew is just Gardner Minshew. Like, he's one of the best backup quarterbacks you could have. And if you still go out there and win some games, yes, he could possibly get it done. But there's no long-term dynasty value here. I mean, and if in Superflex, yeah, give me Aiden O'Connell because he's the one that has a chance. Like, he's the one that I might be able to sell for something if somebody's quarterback goes down in the first 4 snaps of the season. Like, it's possible there's some value there, but
it is interesting. It is interesting because I'm with you guys. Like, if I would rather have O'Connell than Minshew, but if I have Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers, I would rather Gardner Minshew be the starter because I know that he can keep those guys afloat for sure. You know, we saw it with Michael Pittman Jr. last year. We saw it in his time in Jacksonville. Like, he still gets the job done for the fantasy assets. So it's funny, like, if I have the quarterback, I would rather choose Aiden O'Connell. If I have the ancillary pieces, if I have Brock Bowers, if I have, you know, these different players, like, I probably want Gardner Minshew because I know he's a capable quarterback that can keep my guys afloat. So it is kind of like 6 one way, half a dozen the other.
Does one in your eyes affect the running game more? I mean, I feel like maybe Minshew, but not really, right? I mean, like, neither one of them threatens the ball downfield enough to kind of pull a safety out or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like,
no,
I think either way, that one's okay, right?
Yeah, and for the run game, you're probably going to hear some stats out there, and people will probably be out there talking like, oh, Antonio Pierce is going to run heavy offense. He's going to run heavy offense. Because what he did last year, and it kind of really helped Zamir White a lot. But again, the reason he did that is because they were ahead, because of the quarterbacks they were playing. So that's why they won that win streak. When they were behind, they threw the ball. And they threw the ball a ton. And Zamir White was not involved in that. Zamir White, Alexander Madison, not pass catcher running backs. It's Dylan Labe. He's going to be their pass catcher running back. I mean, I think Zamir White had like 4 catches or something along those lines, like last year or ever.
I think it was more than that.
It's not much.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah, well, you look it up. It might take that and double it, but that's about it. So, like, and I know, listen, we're all Zamir White guys, right? Like, we all liked him coming out of Georgia. We all were big fans, but and you look at it, the way he ended the season last year, like, as a high-end running back, right? Came in there, had some big games, put up some running back 1 numbers. I think, Matt, you said he was like, what, running back like 9, like last year when he had the opportunity coming in there?
It was definitely it was higher than top 10. I can't remember. It might have been top 6 almost. He had 8 receptions in the last 4 games. And really it was a game with 3 and a game with 5, and then 2 games with none. Okay. So it's a little bit
viable.
Or no, I'm sorry. That was 15, 16, 17 because the site I'm looking at only shows those stats. They didn't show week 18. So
and who knows? He might even add more. Better pass catcher running back. So I'm sure he'll come down in the 3rd round, third downs in there. But I mean, we'll see.
Labe he's very good in that aspect of the game. And I actually heard Antonio Pierce talking about him specifically. And like, dude, every time he's on the field, he makes a play. And when the coach is noticing you through training camp and making a note of it to talk about him on an NFL Network show, like that's something that kind of perks up my ears and goes, oh, all right, well, maybe he's going to have a little bit more of a role than we expect here, because he's catching the eye of the coaches, and they're like, wow, this dude just makes plays. So they don't care where he came from anymore. They just care that he's on their team and he's making plays against their defense.
Yeah, so from a safety net standpoint in Dynasty, like I really would be looking at opportunity. If there's any opportunity that presents itself for Zamir White as a sell of value, you're probably looking at that. I mean, when you're playing Dynasty fantasy football, or let's just call it fantasy football, as you enter the season here, we inch closer to redraft, right? So what's the key to success in fantasy football? You want a run-in quarterback. You want a pass catching running back. You want the number one heavily targeted receiver, and you want the tight end to be the first or second option at offense. So when you go by the running back, like Zamir White doesn't really fit that profile, that pass catcher running back. He's like that ground and pound guy. And I think he's very solid. Definitely very solid for an NFL team. But if one of these running back gets down, say Jahmyr Gibbs is going to miss the first couple of weeks of the season on the hammy, and somebody has Jahmyr Gibbs in the running back. Like if I can get a high second round pick for Zamir White, that's probably a position I wouldn't be too shy from running away from.
Just to emphasize that, Rich, we did kind of the statistics that matter episode about a month or two ago, and at running back, you really want to see that running back have a 30 catch season in their first or second year. Zamir White didn't. So as much as I do love him as a player, the odds of him being any sort of long-term successful fantasy running back are almost none. It was like, if you didn't do that in your first 2 seasons, you have like a 3% chance of being like a legitimate fantasy asset for more than one season. So the odds don't stack in his favor.
Not at all. At the receiver position, you have two options and two options only at the receiver position, and that's going to be Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers. I know they spent a third-round pick, I think it was last year, on Trey Tucker, but honestly, it's going to be Jacoby Myers and Devontae, even in kind of there. I mean, Devontae Adams saw 175 targets last year. That is absolutely disgusting. Caught 103 of them. I mean, he saw 33% of the team's targets right there. And then you got Jacoby Myers, who you could argue is somewhat of a value if you're desperate for a receiver out there. He finished as wide receiver 24 last year in PPR leagues, averaged a very solid 13.7 points per game. Jimmy Garoppolo got benched week 10. So with Aiden O'Connell, when he came in, he was wide receiver 29. Overall, from every week that O'Connell was in there. Afterwards, he averaged 12.1 points per game. But if you do take after the bye, it got better. And which, a new quarterback in there, a young rookie quarterback, it did get better. From weeks 14 to 18, Jacoby Myers was still a wide receiver 2, actually a little bit better. He was wide receiver 21, despite a slight downtick in 1 point per game with 12.7. So 71 catches, 807 yards were nice. He did take a big step in that category for production with 8 touchdowns, which was his career high. But he might be sneaky value. The only thing that makes me worried about him being sneaky value is, of course, the 13th overall pick.
Yeah, obviously Brock Powers is a guy that's going to come in here and really, I think he's going to end up playing mostly wide receiver, right? He's going to be in that slot, and they're going to, I think, run both of those guys out there, him and Michael Mayer. And Mayer's going to be the more traditional inline blocker and kind of running stuff up the seams. And we all know that Bowers can just operate literally anywhere on the field. As far as he can be in the backfield, he can be split out wide. You can bring him in tight if you want to, motion him in and run the ball behind those two guys. So it gives them a lot of flexibility, and Bowers, I would expect to just kind of hit the ground running. All reports are that he's looking pretty good in camp as well. So I think Bowers is going to kind of tamp down or kind of lower. I lower my expectations for a guy like Jacoby Myers. And you mentioned Trey Tucker. I think he's going to be that big play guy. Once a game, they're going to be twice a game. They're going to be chucking the ball downfield to him. Whether or not it hits is going to be kind of how his fantasy value for that week is going to be determined. They'll probably use him on punt returns and stuff like that as well. So, they'll get value out of him as far as the team. And if you have that kind of scoring in your fantasy league, I would expect to have a little uptick from him as well. So those are the only kind of leagues that I would be kind of a little bit interested in Trey Tucker, as if there's return yardage. So just
Yeah, last thing here with this team, Las Vegas Raiders ranked 19th according to PFF going into the season. So not an ideal offensive line, but it's not a bad group either. It's not one of these, bottom 5, bottom 6 type units. They actually played fairly decent last year. So should have a decent line for Zamir White and then for whoever the quarterback's going to be.
Can't wait to find out. Brock Bowers, definitely the number one asset on this team right now. The only 2-time John Mackey Award winner. And I agree with Matt. I think they're going to run 2 tight end sets. You can't spend a second round pick on Michael Mayer and then take a guy like Brock Bowers. I understand sticking to your board and taking best player available. It was still kind of a weird pick for this team. But yeah, we'll see how it all works out. I mean, Devontae Adams is getting a little bit old there in the tooth. And you got Brock Bowers. We'll see how long this could hold out for, and who's playing quarterback. I would assume it's going to be Shadur Sanders next year.
Could be.
That would be exciting, right?
Hey, Dynasty Nerds, it's time to take your Dynasty game to the next level with FFPC's Dynasty Startup Leagues. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, FFPC has a league for you with entry fees ranging from $100 up to $5,000. Choose from a variety of formats, including Superflex, Best Ball Superflex, Triflex, 1QB, and Standard. With weekly lineups, waivers, trades, head-to-head matchups, and playoffs, FFPC's fully managed leagues provide the ultimate dynasty experience. Most importantly, the leagues are here to stay. FFPC has never had a dynasty league fold. They manage the entire commissioner experience from buy-in management to fulfilling your orphans. FFPC is perfect place to expand your dynasty league portfolio. And here's the best part. As a Dynasty Nerds listener, you can get $25 off any entry fee as a new member when you use the promo code NERDS. Head over to myffpc.com now to draft your team, manage your roster, and dominate your league with FFPC. That's myffpc.com. Promo code NERDS for $25 off any entry fee for new members. FFPC, where dynasty dreams become a reality. So our last team to talk about here in the AFC West is the Los Angeles Chargers. At quarterback, you got Justin Herbert and Easton Stick. At running back, you have Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, Kamani Vidal, and Jarrett Gluteus Minimus Patterson.
Yeah.
At wide receivers, you have Ladd McConkey, G.J. Shark, Joshua Palmer, Brendan Rice, Cornelius Johnson. Oh, yeah, and Quentin Johnson, the former first-round pick. He's the back end of that depth chart. At tight end, you got Will Disley, Hayden Hurst, and Donald Parham. So this team does not you went from a team that was like, wow, give me a piece of that offense 3 years ago. Like, I can't get enough of it. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, I can't remember who the tight end was, but Austin Eckler.
They had Hunter Henry. They had
Hunter Henry. That's it. He was looking good.
Austin Eckler.
Yep. And now you got Justin Herbert and Ladd McConkey.
More or less.
That's it. Yep. That is about it.
So you bring in a new head coach and the cheater, Jim Harbaugh, out there cheating his way to a national championship. But I get it. Listen, man, if you can't beat Ohio State, there's only one thing left to do. You got to cheat. I get it. I understand it. I wouldn't do it, but I also wouldn't go to Michigan. But that's just me. I'm a very biased Ohio person. So you bring in Jim Harbaugh, the cheater. You bring in Greg Roman as offensive coordinator. Those guys worked together before back in San Francisco from 2011 to 2014. And the one thing to know when they work together is they're in the bottom league. They're the bottom of the league. I think like 30th overall, like in passing the football. Now, they didn't have a Justin Herbert in their league on their team. The league was definitely different than it was in 2024. The rules were different. So we would expect that to change, but we all know where the Chargers were going, right? On this offensive with the offensive line in this draft. They went out and got the best offensive lineman in this draft, in their opinion, in Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. They already have a really great tackle in Rashawn Slater. So this offensive line should be really good, which bodes well for the two running backs they brought in, who are coming from Baltimore, coming from Greg Roman's offense, and Gus Edwards, who, if you look at statistics, looks like a Hall of Famer, statistically wise, on average. And then, honestly, if you look at J.K. Dobbins, just his statistics, not his game plays. Please don't do that because he's missed 42 games out of the last 3 years, coming off an Achilles injury. But his yards per attempt is 5.8. It's like the best of all time. The guy's disgusting. So you got J.K. Dobbins there. You bring Gus Edwards, the bruiser, in his offensive line. You already got a Justin Herbert with a plantar fasciitis. That's no bueno. So I would expect the guys to get the touches in this offense with a good offensive line, with a guy that wants to run the football, is Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins.
I totally agree on this, and that's what I was going to say. Even though, like, I didn't love Vidal's tape, like, at their current cost, give me all of them. Like, give me all of them. I don't need to be a detective and figure out which one is actually going to be the guy. Like, give me all of them, and I'll just figure out which one it is, because right now you can get any one of them dirt cheap. And, like, you might be able to give a late second and get all three of them. And, like, I think they're going to run the ball so much. I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity there. If I had to guess, it would probably be Gus Edwards, but I love J.K. Dobbins. I would love to see him be the guy that breaks the mold on this, but it's tough to trust that. But if there's anybody that could potentially do it, it's a younger, explosive athlete like him. So we'll kind of have to wait and see, but I love this running attack. I love this offensive line. So give me all these players. Chances are their running back of the future is in next year's draft. So it's probably only a 1-year deal. But it could be one of those guys where all of a sudden you're like, oh, did you know that Gus Edwards actually was running back 14 last year? Oh, did you know that J.K. Dobbins was actually running back 16? Like, I could see that being one of those guys this season.
And it absolutely, they can get out from both of these contracts relatively easy, especially after this season for Gus Edwards. They can get out from J.K. Dobbins right now. He's got like basically no guarantees. So Gus Edwards, between the two of those guys, I mean, it's $500,000 or so, not even $500,000, I think, in guarantee or after this season. So it'll be all cleared up, and I would expect them to draft somebody as well. So, but in the short term, I think Gus Edwards is where I'd put my money personally. I just think he's slightly more or slightly less injury prone than J.K. Dobbins. He still seems to get the nicks and the bruises and misses games here and there. Which to me, if a guy like Gluteus Minimus makes a team, is this finally the year that he gets a chance?
I'd be so happy. I'd be so happy.
Just like if he gets like a 4-game stretch where he actually is fantasy relevant, those might be like just my best 4 weeks. Like I don't even have them. I'll just be there to enjoy the moment for Gluteus Minimus for his staying power in the NFL at 5'6" or 5'5.5" or whatever the heck he is. And just to reference him on the podcast on a weekly basis will just be a breath of fresh air, I think.
Absolutely.
No, it won't be. You guys won't even see it coming. So, and I'll take Gus Edwards. Listen, I've seen camp footage of J.K. Dobbins. He looks spry, which is crazy. Yeah. So I'm with you. I hope he bucks the trend for Achilles, but just because I love J.K. Dobbins so much, I can't come on this podcast when I've said over and over every year, like, sorry, coming off Achilles, I don't believe in you. Like, I just don't believe in you because it hasn't been done. Even though J.K. Dobbins looks spry, I still have a lot of J.K. Dobbins shares. I'm holding on to him. My fingers are crossed, but I think it's going to be Gus Edwards. That's going to be the mainstay here. But look at so.
Can I hold on? Can I stay on this subject for a second and just mention another off-subject player?
About
Cam Akers. No, Cam Akers apparently looks spry and like he's got some burst in his legs in camp. So, I mean, file that in the believe it when I see it, because this was coming from a guy that I would trust on the radio, but still I haven't seen that with my own eyes to say that I believe it. But
you know where I'll file that, Matt? Right next to my Bigfoot file, which is right in between.
So very likely to be true. The very likely to be true file.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm buying that.
If you've seen some of my fridge magnets, you would know that I'm a Bigfoot believer. So
yeah, dude, I love Harry and the Hendersons. Like, it's a great movie. Like, I love it. He's out there putting his head out the window, become the ambulance. Yeah, big Harry and the Henderson fan. But I'll believe it when I see it. So coming to the passing game, this is the NFL still. It doesn't matter how much Greg and Jim want to get out there and run the ball. Like, this isn't college. Like, you can't cheat your way to W. So you got to get out there and you got to throw the football at times. Stuff having a guy like Justin Herbert. The Chargers having a very, very large amount of vacated targets, like 400 targets available. They lose Gerald Everett, Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, and Keenan Allen. That's a lot of targets to go around. And we know, you can't waste them on Quentin Johnston because they're just wasted. So
that was going to be my question. Like, is there any hope? Because, like, I'm out, but I've always been out on him. Like, is there any hope for him?
No.
Okay.
I mean, there's always hope, but no. Like, if you're like, hey, Rich, is there hope for Quentin Johnson? Do you gun to my head? I'm like 0%. No, there's no.
I mean, right now, granted, this is our lads. It's not, the official depth chart of Jim Harbaugh, but he's not even listed as a starter at the moment. Like, he's behind Palmer, Chark, and McConkey.
Yeah, no shish kebabs. He's not going to start. Like, it's going to be Josh Palmer and it's going to be Ladd McConkey. My guy, my fourth-rated receiver in this draft class, the guy who I pounded this table for extremely hard. I think Ladd McConkey is going to eat this year and be I think he's going to be a high-end wide receiver too. Very savvy route runner, knows how to get open. Yes, smaller frame, but I'm not too worried about that. I hate when people want to pick and choose when it comes to frame work. So I think Ladd McConkey will be just fine. I think he's going to be the number one receiver in this offense, and I think he's going to be the look they go to. So I think Ladd McConkey, just by being heavily targeted in this offense until T. Higgins gets there in 2025, I think that he's going to kind of help carry, like, be the rookie wide receiver that really sees a big ADP jump just for how many footballs this guy's going to catch. I could easily see him get like 130 targets this year, coming away with like 95 receptions, 1,100 yards, and some touchdowns, and be a very solid wide receiver too. And Josh Palmer, he's a sneaky guy here. He's the guy that's going to come in and always been a very solid receiver when Palmer's not in there with Mike Williams or Keenan Allen. He's going to average you right around like 75 yards per game. So without those two guys there, with all these vacated targets, if you're looking for like a deep stash at receiver because you're so thin, and offer some upside in case like maybe a guy like maybe McConkey goes down, maybe he's a rookie, can't put together, Josh Palmer would be my next pick as the number one targeted player in this offense. And with no really well-established tight end here, I know Hayden Hurst is fine. Will Disley's whatever. I don't even know Donald Parham's going to make the team. I think Josh Palmer will be the second look in this offense for the LA Chargers in the passing game. And he might be able to flirt with that 1,000 receiving yards this year with how many targets that are available.
There are a lot of targets to go around. Don't completely fall asleep on DJ Chark. If he can stay healthy, he's shown that he can be a 1,000-yard type of guy. He's done that in the past. So it's going to be between those two guys. I could see quite a few of these, three wide receiver sets being Chark and Palmer on the outside with Ladd McConkey in on the slot. So I think all three of those guys are going to be on the field plenty. And like you said, there's not much at that tight end position. Will Disley, I think, is a fine player. He can just never stay healthy. And then, after that, Hayden Hurst, I mean, you might as well just say ditto on that. Like, when he's on the field, sure, he's good. When but who can rely on either one of those guys? And same with Parm. If he makes the team, he's also a guy that flashes here and there, and he's a giant target, but he seems to get nicked up quite a bit as well. So I would think there's going to be a lot of three wide receiver sets, just because there might not be enough reliable tight ends unless they bring somebody in. This feels like a team that almost needs somebody there to stabilize that position. So who knows what'll happen around cut time. If there's a surprise cut somewhere, they might end up here with the Chargers. That wouldn't shock me one bit. But for now, I mean, listen, Josh Palmer has always been my kind of like running joke. Like, he's a fine wide receiver, but he's going to get you 500 yards, and that's just about it in any given season. I think he used to be 400-yard Palmer. I think he's upped his game now, so he's like to 550-yard Palmer. For me, but I don't know. I'm putting my money on TJ Chark to kind of be the guy, the 28-year-old kind of established guy that they kind of need to stabilize this thing and become Justin Herbert's kind of, not his main guy, but just that bigger 6'4" target that he kind of needs to just kind of chuck the ball up to. So if I had a bet, I'd say Chark. But you're going Palmer. I'm going Chark.
Bold prediction 2 weeks early. Josh Palmer has 1,000 receiving yards in 2024. Somebody please remind me to put down my bold predictions.
I'll remind you.
Thank you.
Maybe I'll offset it with my own DJ Chark.
We'll do a little friendly bet that I'll forget about.
Yep, sounds perfect. Sounds about our annual tradition.
For what it's worth,
life savings.
Chargers projected to have the 12th best offensive line, so just sneaking up on that top 10. Obviously, the tackles are pretty great. We'll have to see about Zion Johnson. That's a guy that they really need to take a step forward at guard there. If he does, this offensive line could easily be one of the top 10 units.
Heck yeah, sister. That was a great show. We'll be back tomorrow. NFC West to close out our division breakdowns. And what's coming next week, Garrett? What are we doing next week? Is next week our top...
I think we start our top 12s next week.
Our top 12s each at each position. That's going to be fun and exciting, and to tell us why.
Oh, yeah. It's a great time. Every time we get to talk about who we think is going to be good for this year, there's a lot that goes into that, because just because a guy's ranked highly for Dynasty doesn't necessarily mean we think he's going to be a top 12 guy for the season. So there's some fun debate that always goes around there. Hopefully, we don't have any Miles Sanders types this year that ruin our top 12s. None of us, man. I didn't say who did it. I didn't say. You gave yourself away though. But yeah, that'll be fun. And then this week, if you're a Nerd member, we've been teasing it for a little while. We've got the Fantasy Feud game coming, the Fantasy Football Family Feud. So it'll be fun.
I'm going to win.
For sure.
All right, guys. Adios.